Quote, "Then, when the sacred months are drawn away, slay the idolaters wherever you find them, and take them, and confine them, and lie in wait for them in every place of ambush. But if they repent, and perform the prayer, and pay the alms, then let them go their way." Close quote. That is Surah 9, verse 5. Breaking it down into more modern terms that today's Western mindset can understand, it's saying to Muslims that as long as it's not Ramadan, go ahead with the task of spreading Islam. How? Anyone who's not already a Muslim needs to either be killed or converted to Islam or made to pay a fee for the privilege of staying alive and to keep people from robbing, looting, raping, beating, and burning your family and your property. Abdullah Yusuf Ali's footnote number 1251 or 1251, his comments on this very passage shed tremendous light in terms of helping us better understand the classic Islamic interpretation of this. Quote, "When war becomes inevitable, it must be prosecuted with vigor. According to the English phrase, you cannot fight with kid gloves. The fighting must take the form of slaughter or capture or siege or ambush and other stratagems." Close quote. That is the Qur'an text translation and commentary by Abdullah Yusuf Ali, footnote number 1251 or 1251. Pay us money, become a Muslim, or die. Another occurrence of this teaching. Quote, "Fight those who believe not in Allah and the last day, and do not forbid what Allah and His Messenger have forbidden. Such men as practice not the religion of truth, being of those who have been given the book, until they pay the tribute out of hand and have been humbled." Close quote. That is Surah chapter 9, Surah 9, verse 29, ayat number 29. Let's interpret this verse together to get the meaning out of the text. Fight those who believe not in God, as some English translations call it. The Arabic says Allah, because what God is being talked about? Well, since this is a Muslim writing, we must conclude that the God in view is the Allah deity of Islam. Hopefully this makes sense. Those who believe not in Allah are by definition non-Muslims. They're the ones in view here. Such men, and men is a rubber band, it's a catch-all phrase that is meant to encompass women and children as well as men. Sometimes we call the human race mankind. We're actually referring to all people in general and not just specifically to men. And that's the case here. Such men or such human beings or such people as practice not the religion of truth. This is another reference to non-Muslims. In an Islamic writing, what would be called the religion of truth? Obviously Islam. Those who practice not Islam then are by definition non-Muslims. Non-Muslims are being referred to herein in two different ways as being those people that Muslims should particularly fight and kill, being of those who have been given the book, a reference to Jews and or Christians, and I say and or Christians because Muhammad was not the most consistent fellow that you'll ever read. In the Qur'an, sometimes people of the book is clearly about the Jews. Other times, according to context, it's clearly a reference to Christians. I've even read some Muslim writers and scholars and thinkers and commentators who think that the phrase people of the book is supposed to refer to both Jews and Christians at the same time wherever it's found in the Quran as a catch-all. I don't agree with that position, but it's another of the views that are out there that you should know about. Of those three available options, it really doesn't matter which one you pick because no matter how you slice it, Muhammad clearly wants Muslims to fight and kill a certain specific, surgical, isolated, set-apart group of people until they pay the tribute out of hand and have been humbled. So basically, the verse is saying this: anyone who will not convert to Islam, especially Jews and Christians, fight and kill them, or charge them a fee to live, and when they pay it, you can allow them to live and leave them alone because their payment is the humbling, it is the visible demonstration, their acknowledgement of which religion is superior, Islam. So if you pay the money, you might as well be bowing the knee because it's viewed as equal here. We don't see this happening on our streets every day here in America At the very least, not yet. So you're probably a little bit surprised to hear these facts presented in this way. It's not happening here in America, at least not yet, because Islam is not the dominant religion here numerically, at least not yet. And the government is not a Muslim government. And yes, I'm going to say it again, at least not yet. Why do I say that? How pessimistic can I be? Well, we don't know what's going to happen in the future of our nation. As I sit here right now in 2002, judging from the direction things seem headed in currently, the future could go either one way or another. But clearly, we've just seen yet another passage in the sacred Islamic texts commanding Muslims to commit acts of war against people who don't hold to Islam as their religion of choice. Allah loves the Muslims that kill for him. It's often said as a criticism of Islam that it's God, Allah. When one reads the Qur'an, it's duly noted that it's nearly impossible to find an account of him being described anywhere as a God of love. References to him extending love to his created universe, the human beings he made, even his own Muslims that follow him, they're extremely rare. Some thinkers, they think it's non-existent. They wonder if this evil, wicked deity loves anybody at all. Well, in this author's research, a passage has come to light that must be shared. There are some people that Allah actually loves. Surah 61 verse 4 says, quote, Allah loves those who fight in his way in ranks as though they were a well-compacted building, or a building well compacted. So that's Surah 61:4. So the Allah God of Islam actually does love a certain group of people, but they're only those people who are willing to kill in his name, in his cause, in the advancement of his message and his religion and his prophet. He particularly seems to like it when his people become unified around this killing spree and look like a well-organized, precise unit when they pull it off. Does a bunch of guys doing something in harmony, like, say, hijacking 4 planes simultaneously and crashing them one after another minutes apart into various targets like clockwork, does that sound in harmony? Does it sound like they operated like a building well compacted? No doubt that those Muslim terrorists had this verse on their minds on September 11, 2001. It was a very well-planned, very well-organized, very well-financed operation, just like their God not only likes it, but has commanded it to be so. They were certainly trying to win their evil God's approval and love by the only way that he's revealed that he'll love somebody. Like it or not, the historical as well as the present facts speak for themselves. If this is just your first time reading something like this, or in this audio case hearing something like this, and you're absolutely shocked so far at how Islam is painting itself by just a simple interpretation of its own works, I challenge you to do your own independent study. If you study Islamic history, or if you study world history, particularly those countries through which Islam has passed at some point, you're going to quickly catch on to a pattern. You're going to see a repeated theme. You'll see that wherever Islam has been on the face of the earth, wherever it has been in power, through alliances with human government, wherever it has been the dominant religion among people numerically, it has always left behind a trail painted red with the blood of innocent people. The governments of those nations, resulting from the leaders being followers of Islam and obeyers of the primary source documents in which Islam has been systematized and revealed, usually become so corrupt and so power-hungry and so bloodthirsty that we see the earlier referenced Quranic passages being carried out against the common people over whom they rule. And non-Muslims usually have the trilemma. They usually have the ultimatum given to them: either become a Muslim, pay us money, or die. Seems to be the choice that they're forced to make. Smite their necks. Strike home your blows at the non-Muslims' most vital points. When you meet the unbelievers, smite their necks. Then, when you've made wide slaughter among them, tie fast the bonds. That is Surah 47, verse 4. This Surah 47 is actually named after Muhammad himself. Yes, his parents must be proud. On September 11, 2001, This verse was obeyed perfectly for the false god Allah by some of his human slaves or followers. They made wide slaughter among us here in America, just as the passage commands them. This country who many Islamic terrorist groups have declared jihad or holy war against in years past. Abdullah Yusuf Ali provides us with an Islamic scholar's interpretation of this passage in his commentary. If I'm misunderstanding it, surely someone more intelligent than me like him is going to correct me. His comments are as follows. Footnote number 4820 or 4820, quote, once the fight, jihad, is entered upon, carry it out with the utmost vigor and strike home your blows at the most vital point. Smite their necks both literally and figuratively. You cannot wage war with kid gloves, close quote. And again, that's footnote 4820 or 4820. It's his comments on Surah 47:4. The first thing that comes to mind when checking out Ali's comments is, can the man please get some new material? How many times can you parrot the phrase, you cannot fight, you cannot wage war with kid gloves, in the same book? Somebody get the brother a thesaurus, somebody get him an English dictionary or whatever. Let him learn some other phrases to use. But seriously, I want you to keep something in mind. This is the most popular commentator read by the Muslims here on the Western Hemisphere. The Muslims in the North American continent read him the most. They trust him the most. Many of them are studying this verse every day and other Quranic verses just like it. Somewhere right now in your city, just as you sit here and listen to this book, there's a young Muslim studying the Quran's jihad commands somewhere. He's learning how to be ready to be called upon by the higher-ups in the hierarchical structure of the jihad against the great Satan of the West, the United States of America. Did you know they call the United States of America the Great Satan and Israel the Lesser Satan, or the Small Satan, depending on how you translate it into English? Satan is the code word for the land you love, the home of the free and the brave. Anytime you can take a land of freedom and opportunity and call it Satan, that just shows how backwards you really are, how lost and how deceived you really are. But anyways, the young man down the street from you reading this passage and reading Ali's commentary, further enforcing the classic Islamic interpretation into his mind, when the phone call comes in, you better believe that this kid, teamed up with others, is going to be hyped up, psyched up, and ready to carry out a holy war and to strike home their blows against all that is non-Muslim, all that is not submitted to their God Allah. And since they see us as an infidel nation or a non-Muslim nation because we're not nationally or corporately submitted to Allah, then war is declared against us all. They don't care who they take out, as long as those killed are non-Muslims and citizens of the United States of America. Man, woman, boy, girl, baby, elderly, physically handicapped, mentally disabled, it doesn't matter. They'd probably be happy to kill your family dog or cat in the name of Allah, if they could get the opportunity. An American killed is an infidel pig taken off the earth forever. In the act of taking out as many of us as possible at one given time, under one operation, they also want to hit the most vital points of their enemy, and their enemies in America, for the particular Muslims, some of which are in foreign lands and some of which walk the streets with you and I every day, who've declared jihad against us. Our most vital points were the World Trade Center. They were the Pentagon. They were the White House. The World Trade Center is a symbol of our economy, of our economic strength, of the superiority of capitalism, of American exceptionalism, and the freedom to pursue your dreams and to have upward mobility with heathen government taken out of your way. The Pentagon was a symbol of our military might, the greatest military on the planet. And the White House, thank God they didn't get it, is a symbol of our government and our form of government, which grants the people under it freedom, even the freedom to reject Islam if they so choose. It should be beginning to become plainer and easier to see the truth that September the 11th, 2001 was the previously referenced Quranic passage interpreted in the previously referenced way by the most popular Muslim American interpreter, commentator that we know, being obeyed and carried out exactly as written. and it led to the most horrifying loss of life we've ever seen. It's yet another Quranic command to commit acts of terror and acts of holy war against others who don't think like you, others who don't share Islam as your religion. That is ridiculous. I keep on quoting these things one after the next so you can see what I've always known to be true since the 1990s. Even if it's your first time seeing it in this way, I'm going to keep on giving it to you. I must confess that I was once a sympathizer with the religion of Islam. I was not happy when I was confronted with these facts that I'm now presenting to you. But facts are facts, and no honest person can get around them if they're truly seeking to fully understand Islam and the threat for what it really is. In the same way that I had no other choice but to alter my view of Islam in order to make it line up with the evidence, so must you. In the same way that when my deep sleep was met with the alarm clock of facts and I had no choice but to wake up, so must you. I hope you can see the pattern of violence taught in the Quran beginning to unfold here. The very future of our country is dependent upon our citizens' ability and willingness to wake up and smell the truth. September the 11th, 2001 was Islam rightly interpreted in all of its splendor. It was Islam at its finest. It was not a bunch of isolated fanatics. It was not a bunch of crazies who were out of step with Islam. It was the most common school of thought within Islam that is the most widely taught all over the world. Attention, all Americans. It is time to think outside of the cocoon. Some of my friends from other countries tease me about the mentality we have here in our great nation. We at times have what I refer to as a plastic bubble mentality. We see the sort of tunnel vision. If the world were a mile long, we only see a foot of it, and only the foot that directly relates to our everyday lives. Only the foot that is right in front of us. Anything outside of the sphere that is our daily life is unimportant to us. We neglect what goes on in other countries because it is outside of our own day-to-day experience in our own country. For the first time, this has now come back to haunt us. Sometimes we even get to the point where we forget that other countries exist outside of the United States. And to some of our East Coast and West Coast readers, sometimes you're so inwardly focused that you don't even realize that any place outside of California or New York exists at all. You at times get so caught up in the goings-on of your own local community that you think that your daily life is the only place on the planet that there is. We as Americans have the plastic bubble mentality, where we live and move and have our being within a fixed sphere. When it comes to world events, this truly limits our perspective and damages our ability to see a bigger picture. When you realize that outside of the plastic bubble we live in, there exist many other countries, and then look at Islam through worldwide eyes, through global eyes, the view is clearer. My point is easier to see. All around the Islamic world, the way I'm presenting the Quran to you is the dominant way of interpreting these verses. I'm giving you the majority view that is taught and practiced throughout all of the world of Islam. Who cares what a small amount of them here in America are trying to tell you that Islam teaches? Are we to take what is communicated by a small part of Islam here and apply it to the whole of Islam around the world? Or does it make more sense to look at the whole of Islam all around the world in order to understand what the small part of Islam here more than likely believes? Of course, the ones over here with us in America are going to say that they're peaceful. They're in the numeric minority here. They're trying to blend in unnoticed. They're trying to be anonymous. What would you expect them to say? Hello, I'm a terrorist. Your country keeps on getting involved in the Middle East peace process and it's not taking my side. I need to teach your country a lesson. I have this dynamite under my coat. Can I blow you up today? They're not going to make it quite that easy. I'm sorry to disappoint you. They're merely infiltrating our plastic bubble until the appointed time. When that appointed time comes, you're going to see what happens to our country from within. And it will wake you up to the truth about Islam on a worldwide level, even if September 11, 2001 did not. But if you care to do it ahead of time, before the next big attack, look outside of the bubble right now. See outside of the cocoon that we live in, and see the grand scheme of things on a worldwide playing field. Name a country where Islamic terrorism is non-existent. Sorry, time is up. You couldn't think of one, could you? Wherever you see Islam, everywhere, pick a country, any country, you also see terrorism. You also see oppression, because Islam and terrorism and oppression go hand in hand. I have not misrepresented Islam. This is the historic way that these verses have been viewed for centuries. This is the way these verses are seen in other countries outside of America by Muslims who are not westernized, who have no need to pretend that they follow a religion of peace because they're in the majority over there. You've seen the fruit. My God, brothers and sisters, open your eyes. We need to stop playing games with our limited scope before it becomes too late. We care more about whether or not our quarterback is going to report to training camp and what happened with the next characters on the reality shows and the cable shows than we do about a gathering storm in our own backyard. Don't let other people's opinions of you throw you off. Do the right thing. Somewhere right now, as you listen to this book, within our very own borders, the next World Trade Center, the next Pentagon, the next World Trade Center is being planned. There's no longer a World Trade Center to hit anymore, but something of that magnitude is on the horizon. It may even be bigger than the last one. As you sit here listening, it's being planned out against America at this very hour. And because we're too busy trying to look the other way and too busy trying to love one another, we're missing it. The modern diversity movement has us all afraid of our own shadows. Any suspicious activity that we witness, we don't want to report it to the authorities for fear of being called a racist or intolerant by our fellow citizens. The nationwide warm fuzzies that everyone has developed sounds nice. It sounds beautiful. But what has it really done? It's sawed the legs off of our citizens in a figurative sense. It's destroyed their right. It's destroyed their ability to patrol their own neighborhoods. It's crippled and decreased the intelligence gathering capabilities of our government agencies. The same people forcing the modern diversity movement down the throats of the masses are going to have the nerve to be upset and shocked when the next terrorist attack comes, when it hits them close to home. They're going to have interfaith ecumenical gatherings and cry and attempt to find meaning as the nation around them crumbles and burns to the ground. They will be unaware of their own contribution to the newest attack. Forget about those people. Don't worry what those people say about you. You owe it to your God and to your nation to do what is right, no matter what people think of you. If you're suspicious of something going on in your neighborhood, even the smallest, even the most seemingly insignificant thing, don't stay quiet. Let someone in authority know immediately so it can be checked out. As our young people say at a concert, make some noise. If you are wrong, you'll put a few fellow citizens through a small inconvenience for which you can later apologize. But on the other hand, if you're right, there's no telling how many lives you could possibly save. The Qur'an gives us the recipe for all hell to break loose in the name of Allah. Surah 8, verse 65, quote, O Prophet, urge on the believers to fight. If there be 20 of you, patient men, they will overcome 200. If there be 100 of you, they will overcome 1,000 unbelievers, for they are a people who understand not. Close quote. Here we see the command of Islam's God Allah to its so-called prophet Muhammad. The command is to urge on or to encourage the believers or the Muslims to fight, to kill. Who are they supposed to fight? Who are they supposed to kill? Well, at the end of the verse, we see the clear answer to that. It is the unbelievers. Who are the unbelievers in a Muslim piece of literature like the Qur'an? The non-Muslims are the unbelievers. If you are not a Muslim, you are the targeted victim of the command in this passage. You are the potential murder victim that the pagan moon deity of Muhammad's Quraysh tribe has commanded Muslims to take out. If that doesn't sound sick to you, I don't know what is. But if you think that was bad, you haven't seen anything yet. It gets worse if you stay with the same flow of thought. In the same surah, Surah 8, you eventually run into verse 67. Quote, it is not for any prophet to have prisoners until he make wide slaughter in the land. Close quote. That's Surah 8:67. So consider for a moment exactly where we are in this analysis. Add both passages together, and you can see the reasoning which provided the psychology necessary in the minds of the September 11, 2001 terrorists to commit such acts of mass murder. Number one, in verse 65, we saw that the Qur'an gives its readers some kind of weird delusions of grandeur. They're taught that even 20 of them are guaranteed to win out against 200 people who are non-Muslim. Basically summed up, it means that no matter how big of a stunt you're getting set to pull off, no matter how many people, no matter what agencies are opposed to your mission, the Allah God of Islam will help you win out against the people who understand not. And that is non-Muslims. If you're non-Muslim, you're a person who understands not. But number two, in verse 67, we see that in a holy war or jihad or yahada situation, no prisoners can be taken until first wide slaughter is made in the land that the Muslims are trying to conquer. Add these two things up, and you have the recipe for all hell to break loose in the name of Allah, and as we've just read, is commanded in the Quran. The Muslim terrorist has these things on his mind, and he has no thought of failure. He has no fear of consequences. He or she is eager and excited to carry out any mission for Allah that is commanded by the people in authority in Islam. Come on, you're being too hard. Islam is a peaceful religion. The average citizen who's informed about Islam only through the news and TV and magazines and other forms of media, or from water cooler conversations in the break room of his or her place of work, yet refuses to pick up the Muslim scriptures and find out the truth for themselves, is perfectly brainwashed. Whether you talk to one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, or somewhere in between, they all sound alike. They've all been systematized. They've all been given the collective way of thinking that's been approved of by the government and the media. They've all swallowed the same watered-down version of Islam. They're a penny a dozen, and they say things like this: Islam is a religion of peace. I know. You see, I saw this guy on television. There was a speech by this guy, and he said so. And I, being the sarcastic, funny guy that I can be at times, respond in the most mocking of tones by saying, oh, I see. It was on TV. It must be true. The news media's first priority is to give us, the average citizens, the whole truth. They're totally objective. They have no hidden motives. They have no agendas. There's no corporation sponsoring the channels that put these things forth. No one's paying for commercials. No one has an agenda. They're totally objective. No hidden motives. No agendas. They believe that all of us can handle everything, and they spare nothing from us in getting us the accurate facts in their completed form every time. They never lie. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I keep forgetting about the absolute reliability and infallibility of the media. This, of course, is just my silly personality making a joke out of their view. Anyone with any sense knows that there's no such thing as an unbiased article or news segment. And anyone who watches the programming being put out about Islam can see that the news networks very much have a view in place, and they're structuring their news story in a way that's been designed to get their viewers to accept their opinions. One has to be blind, deaf, and dumb to miss that, because it's happening right in front of their face. So since a news anchor man or news anchor woman probably has a degree in journalism, should we accept their views about religion too? Or should we be checking out the resources put out by people whose area of study is actually religion, if we want to know the religious truth? If you needed your tonsils removed, would you go to a dentist for help? No, you'd want the best eyes, ears, nose, throat, otorhinolaryngologist doctor that you could find. You'd want one who has done this surgery successfully many times before. A dentist, having studied and worked in a total other unrelated area, would be considered unqualified to perform such an operation. A journalist or a politician putting forth ways that people should view a religion is the equivalent of practicing tonsil removal with a dental license. It just doesn't work. Mr. or Mrs. Reader, you don't go to politicians, you don't go to news broadcasters for religious training and instruction. This is a subject they're unqualified to teach you about. This is an area that is outside of their niche. Do you think you should be accepting whatever they're trying to get you to accept? Sounds like a no-brainer to me. Too bad so many of us here in America cannot get our minds around so basic of a concept.